Hi, this is Cora Stack here again, Dr. Stack. I was just doing a bit of research there, digging into, why Ireland, why so many people in Ireland are finding, life a struggle. And, I was coming to the conclusion that, things were unsustainable if there weren't some changes because, there's a huge amount of people struggling with bills. And I was trying to go into, where those what were the causes of all the bills and the huge hikes that we're seeing, and the percentages were shocking really when I looked at it. So just to a couple of other points there that might be useful for people, and I suppose you could say why everyday costs in Ireland feel brutal and what's behind them. So just in terms of where we stand, in Europe. Perhaps everybody, just to know, I think it's important that we know this, that we're aware of the statistics, the figures. The figures don't lie, I'm afraid. Ireland is officially one of the most expensive countries in Europe. Eurostat's latest comparison puts us second in the EU overall. Only Denmark is higher. On alcohol and tobacco, we're number one. Prices are about double the EU average. Restaurants and hotels also far above the EU norm. That's not a feeling, it's in the data. This is what I'm saying. You're not imagining it. On energy, Irish households faced the third highest electricity prices in the EU in late 2024, and Irish businesses were second highest. That's a competitiveness problem and a kitchen table problem at the same time. Heating isn't any kinder. Oil and gas bills surged through 2022 to 2023, and while wholesale prices have eased, Irish homes still pay far more than most in Europe. Around half of Irish households heat with oil, and every winter sees a painful mix of volatile international price, high carbon tax and VAT added on top. For gas users, standing charges alone can run €300 to €400 a year before a single unit is burned. At the petrol pump, Ireland sits in the high price group in Europe. And here's the kicker: the majority of what you pay is tax. This is referred to as indirect tax. Around 2/3 of petrol and 3/5 of diesel goes to excise, carbon tax and VAT, that's value added tax. Carbon tax has stepped up again in 2025, and I think this is why the Green Party had a really bad election, because I think they didn't understand the impact on the ordinary rural person's pocket on the proposed targets for carbon emissions reductions. I mean, people are just strapped as it is, and they can't afford to be paying all this carbon tax. It's just too much, too quickly. While people understand the need for reduced carbon emissions, it's fair. But doing it this way is impoverishing people completely. Insurance isn't spared either. A typical motor premium was around €575 in the most recent official figures, and every policy carries levies: 3% non-life levy, 1% €1 stamp duty, and usually 2% to the insurance compensation fund. They're all baked into your bill before an insurer pays a single claim. Telecoms. Many phone and broadband contracts now bake in automatic annual hikes. The CPI, that's the Consumer Price Index, plus a fixed margin or fixed euro amount. So do you see the way it's the index plus a fixed euro amount? I mean, is that included in our wage? In wage contracts, do we get the CPI plus a fixed euro amount? I don't think so. So there you have it. You see, it's all creeping up gradually, you see. So it's all very gradual. And you can see the erosion then of your purchasing power is gradually eroded over and over. And this is the point I was making there, in the last video, the huge erosion of your purchasing power. And it all kind of creeps up gradually until you find that you're in a very difficult, up in a very difficult situation. So that's why your bill creeps up every April. So that I wasn't aware of that every April there's all of these fixed CPI increases plus a fixed margin or a fixed amount. So if you drive, you meet car taxes twice each year, or whatever, motor tax or whatever way you pay it, and up front with VRT when a car is first registered from mid 2025, the VRT, that's the vehicle registration tax, is 8% for lower emission vehicles and 13.3% above that on top of the car's value. NCT, €60 a test in 2025. We did say that from this year the retest has gone up hugely. If anybody noticed that, it has significantly. We mentioned exactly what that amount was in a previous video. That's more than the UK's MOT cap, and it's another must-pay item just to keep your car legal. And yes, Dublin hotel room rates are very high through 2024 and into 2025, with occupancy over 80%. So you see, with that level of occupancy, hotels can charge that kind of money. That's the issue. Somebody was making the point, demand versus supply. I wouldn't say it's certainly that perhaps in the hotel. If they're getting that level of occupancy, they can charge these huge prices, because we're the highest in Europe for hotels. Or as I said earlier, it seems it just seems very unfortunate, to say the least. Add staff costs, property costs, VAT policy, and tight supply and prices respond the way you'd expect in a small busy market. Yeah. So you have all these other overhead costs that hotels have to pay, so that's how they can sort of have to justify these astronomical prices. So why does the average person feel the squeeze living month to month? Because across many essentials, energy, heating, transport, housing adjacent services, insurance, even your phone bill, Ireland combines high underlying costs with high indirect taxes and levies. At a small island with a small island market, limited competition in some sectors. This was another point about the energy companies, that it's not the energy, the massive hikes we're seeing in our energy bills is coming from a combination of the limited number of companies operating in Ireland, that they're called the service providers, as well as the other points that I was making about where those hikes are coming from. We talked about those in a previous video. So the result is simple, and this is the point, is your wages are chasing prices that are moving faster than you can. And that's another point I was making, that when I looked at the 15-year trajectory of wage increases relative to house prices increases, that it was shocking really to even look at that stat, not to mind all these huge price hikes that we're all having to deal with. It's shocking really, when you actually look at the figures. It's really shocking. And and this is what's happening. Your wages are chasing prices, and this has been the case for years and years and years. And I'm saying, and in particular when you look, it's shocking in the extreme. It's painful really. It really is. If you could imagine the suffering that this is causing so many families, or normal families and students and ordinary working people. I mean, it has to be causing huge societal problems. And this also, then, this financial squeeze and struggles must cause huge problems with with mental health. If you're always behind on your bills, I mean, people's mental health really suffers, and the people get exhaustion, burnout, all of that sort of thing. So it's not just the struggle isn't just the financial struggle. It's what happens to your health, and your relationships and everything when you're squeezed like this. And I mean, you can see that it can come out in all kinds of tensions in a lot of environments. These kind of struggles that people are having to cope with, and having to kind of keep up the face, perhaps, that everything is perfect, when in fact it isn't. It's very clear that we have very, very serious issues here with bills and the cost of bills. Absolutely. So what might help, or would help, these are a couple of other solutions. Keep energy VAT low while we fix the system. More interconnection, storage, and cheaper renewables getting to bills. I mean, that's a very I can't see that happening in the short term. I was suggesting the other policy suggestion was to cap energy bills, re-examine automatic mid-contract prices rises in telecoms, and in the broadband, absolutely. keep insurance reform moving, lower legal costs and speed claims resolution, target release in transport, heating and work-related costs rather than broad giveaways that disappear into higher prices. So this is a very difficult one. How do you target reliefs on work-related costs? I mean, it's a very difficult one, that one. And for tourism, go supply and enforce pricing transparency across big events. So people aren't imagining it. The numbers back them up. So if you feel hard done by, it's because on the essentials, Ireland is one of the most expensive places in Europe. We can fix part of this, but it starts about being honest about the causes.